Talk to the hand. Talk
I'm
to the hand.
I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube. That's my buddy Patrick McCray. That's my buddy Gordon Dymowski. That's my buddy Butch Rosenbalm, who's holding up, who's the only person here who brought the DVDs because, well, he does that. Um,
Butch, congratulations for living through the early 90s. You know, I've got
so,
them. They're just in a box somewhere.
so
I specifically bought this one for this. I mean, I saw it in the theaters, but I haven't seen it since then.
yeah,
I'm curious about your take.
interesting remake. So let's get to the original first. It stars Vincent Price is in this movie. Carol O'Mart, Richard Blum is in this movie. Alan Marshall is in this movie. By the way, there's a guy who was in The Big Sleep who's in this. He plays Pritchard. The guy who gets killed. Hold on,
You mean Elisha Cook Jr.?
Yeah.
He doesn't get killed in this movie, just to clarify that. He gets killed in
does.
Maltese Falcon.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Hey,
he
that's
doesn't.
Sam Cogley, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
He doesn't. He doesn't meet his maker in this movie. No.
Elisha Cook was also in Kiss Me Deadly.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
He's like in one or two scenes, but it's basically Ralph Meeker beats the crap out of him late in the movie.
Now I watched both versions of this movie fairly recently, the black and white and the color version, which both are fun. I prefer the black and white version. So, guys, first question is this Vincent Price's best performance or most notable, at least?
No.
Oh, it's
but-
one of his
but-
most
but let me-
seen films.
Well, didn't mean to interrupt you, Patrick. Go ahead.
No, I just said it's one of his most seen films.
Yeah, because I think, and let me qualify it's not his most notable performance. This is a guy with a lot of notable performances.
Just a ton of movies.
Yeah, so I didn't. I think I may have inadvertently insulted Butch by saying that it wasn't, but
It's definitely, in my opinion, one of his better. And the film, it's a good film, and I honestly, I don't know if I would watch it more than once if he wasn't in it. Mostly because I'm a huge Vincent Price fan. Plus, I like Vincent Price a lot.
You know, the interesting thing, Butch, about you and Vincent Price is that there's a movie in which he plays a character named Butch who is he could not be less like you possible. It's like he's playing the anti-Butch in so many ways. In Theater of Blood.
Theater of Blood.
Had to throw that out there.
Yeah.
You guys share a name in one movie where he's absolutely nothing like you. Continue.
He has a line where he goes, "Hi, I'm Butch," and you're just like, "No, you're not." Gordon, what is his best performance in? I'm curious.
I have two, and these are two personal favorites.
Okay.
And I've got like a bigger group. I would say my two personal favorites are The Abominable Dr. Phibes and Witchfinder General. Although in my head, I conflate those with his work in the Corman's Poe series, The Last Man on Earth. I don't think there is really. I don't think there's such a thing as a bad Vincent Price performance. I'll even include, and he's a secondary character, and it's probably not what you'd think of a Vincent Price film, but it's a personal favorite, Dead Heat.
This House on Haunted Hill 59, if I met somebody, let's call him Joel, and Joel had never seen a Vincent Price film, this is the one I would sit down and have him watch.
Good place to start.
Yeah, to me, this shows you everything about Vincent Price that you want to know, need to know, and should know. The dialogue between he and his character's wife when they're in the bedroom. Remember the fun we had when you poisoned me? And she's like, "Oh, something you ate," and it's if this dialogue was played straight, which it actually kind of is, but if this was not a quasi horror movie, it would come off as just either cringy or oh my god.
Yeah, and if
But
it had,
here it's fun.
yeah, and if it hadn't been directed by William Castle, who had that kind of showman-y, he
They
was
got each other intrinsically. They were just good together.
Yeah. I think too, what I like most about this movie, obviously, you have the people being invited to stay. One of the people actually worked for Vincent Price's character. He's offering them a lot of money to stay the night on the house.
$10,000.
Yeah, it's on the house on a hill. It's him and his wife, and in the movie, he says, because he's trying to catch her at cheating too. He suspects that she's been cheating on him. That's something in this movie too that's interesting. I love the acid scene where it's never been drained. The acid's still there. Jesus Christ.
I'm going to slightly correct you. He doesn't suspect. He knows.
Well, right. He does.
He knows.
I like how he points the champagne bottle. He goes, "Imagine billionaire kills his wife with cork, like exploding cork." I like that. That's funny. Vincent Price is a lot of fun. The first time I heard Vincent Price's voice was when he proved he was the greatest rapper ever in Michael Jackson's Thriller. And he is. I mean, you can quote me any hard rapper in the 90s, and he was the best because he was literally scarier than all of them.
He was one of the three fat boys, and you can see him in Delirious. No, I'm kidding. He was not one of the. They were very unprint. Yeah, a bit pale.
No, he actually did do some rap as under the MC name Grandmaster Flash. Don't push me, 'cause I'm close to the edge.
Okay.
I'm trying not to lose my head. He did that whole thing on the Muppet Show, Joel. Didn't you know that?
I remember that.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that is the first place I ever saw Vincent Price was on the Muppet Show.
It was Egghead, appropriately for me.
Oh my god. So with this movie,
IV Web.
One of the most interesting characters in this movie I like, and he's in the remake as well, is Pritchard. Now they're a tad different, obviously. With this Pritchard in the original, he knows where every murder was committed, where every murder wasn't committed, and that's very few. He knows that he knows that the mansion is haunted. He wants out of there before the doors lock. I mean, he does not want to be there. He knows that people have died, how many people have died in the house. So Pritchard's character in the original, what do you guys make of him?
My favorite part of all that. Oh, go ahead, Patrick.
Just a very logical guy. This is not a place you want to be.
Mm-hmm. And yet he's still there. There's one part pretty early in the film, and they're all standing there having a drink, and he reaches down and opens up the lid of some cabinet, and he just turns around with this butcher knife and goes, "She killed him with the knife," and everybody's like, "What the hell?" Because he swings it around and almost stabs the doctor, I believe, and you're just like, "Dude, should you be here?" Elisha Cook Jr. is, in my opinion, a very underappreciated actor because he's one of those guys. Every time he's in a film, every time he's in a show, he's doing something interesting.
He is the William Sanderson of the 50s.
Yeah, he is actually. I was watching Bucket of Blood a while back on Nightmare Theater out of Nashville, and I thought, what if they'd made Bucket of Blood with Elisha Cook Jr.? And I thought that would have been really interesting. He's not the hero, but he's interesting. He moves the point. He dumps so much exposition and so much backstory so quickly and so interestingly. I mean, usually you're like, okay, here we go. Everybody sit back while they tell us the backstory, and we're all kind of okay. But he does it interestingly, and it's one thing I think in this film that a lot of other films could learn from. Get you a good actor. If you're going to do exposition dump, have somebody do it interestingly, pun intended.
Well, the Greeks in their theater, they had these things called messenger speeches, where messenger comes in and relates some horrific thing that's happened. And they're considered, even to this day, some of the toughest challenges in acting. And what he's doing are messenger speeches, recitations of the past, and he's got to keep them compelling.
Yeah, he also has a very wiry energy about him that you see, because like Sam Cogley in Star Trek is the same way, except his energy is more towards, it's, computers are bad. I believe in books, and I believe in he's not anti-technology in that role. He's more of the, hey, look, maybe we shouldn't rely on it. Whereas here, he's the character who would usually say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be here because it's haunted. There's an extra edge to it. And there's a reason. He also played a lot of, I think, like stoolies and kind of in crime films, because he's got that kind of nervous, twitchy energy. Kind of like Jewel when he doesn't have his Mountain Dew.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. No, in the original, he's willingly there because when Price is doing his introductions, he's like, why he'd stayed there and almost died, and why did he come back? For money, he says. And I remember the first time I watched this film, I kept thinking that he was behind it because he knew so much about the film. He acted kind of weird. And of course, without spoiling anything, he's not the one behind it. Now, in the remake, what is his name?
Chris Kattan. Yeah.
He didn't. I don't think he wanted to leave. He was kind of forced in. But we'll get to him in a minute.
I do. Well, that's what's interesting about this movie too, is the character of Pritchard in this movie. He's saying the house basically he's implying, well, not basically, he is, that the house causes people to commit murder. And by the end of this, he does say, well, another murder took place in this house. So what's you guys' verdict from a fictional sense? Is it the house or is it the person?
It's the person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the person may be released a little bit more by this atmosphere where they're told again and again, yeah, this is where people kill people.
Yeah, definitely in the original, I agree with what Patrick just said.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to sort of touch upon the remake a bit, I think if this were the remake, I'd more agree with Pritchard than I would in the original. I think it's more because Vincent Price's character, well, I mean, there are three major characters who I would say have kill tendency in this. The doctor, who's a heel, who you're going to find out, spoiler alert, he's a heel in the remake too. So, and the wife, who is a heel and something else. And then Vincent Price's character, who wants to, well, either find out, prove his wife's cheating or just kill her. So he doesn't necessarily prove it to anybody but himself. So he just goes ahead and kills her. I do think it boils down to choosing to commit murder. I mean,
especially in the original at the end, and without going into spoiler too much, when they come downstairs, Nora and Lance and all the ones that are left, and Vincent gives his exposition speech. And it's such bullshit because he set it up the whole time to kill his wife and her lover. I guess that's a spoiler alert. And he just, well, we fought and he fell in and then my wife stumbled, and we all know that's not what happened. I wondered if he threw his little control device down real quick.
Here's an interesting thought, though. If they had been decent people and had done, other than this, act of lust, that they had, were generally doing the right thing, the mechanism that led to their death never would have happened.
Yep.
So I'm blaming the victim.
And I don't, Patrick, what's the word for less than complaint? Annoyance, I guess. That doesn't sound right.
Talk to Gordon about that. He and I had a very interesting semantic conversation just about that very concept.
Yeah, I would say annoyed, and then, or you could use irritated.
Irritation. I will take irritation. The only negative I have to say about the original House on Haunted Hill is there are two ladies, character of Nora Manning and the character of Vincent Price's wife. Boy, they got, pun intended, they both got quite the set of lungs on them. You put the movie in, it starts, and they're screaming and screaming, and every time Nora, my God, whew, that woman was obviously hired for her voice and her looks. And then Carol Omar that plays the wife. But they're at the end, when the skeleton is coming toward her, and it's like, oh my God, that's the only, I was like, why are you standing there screaming? I get it. You're like, oh my God, what's going on? It's just like, I mean, usually I end up muting it or turning it way down because it's just like, oh my God, this is just, okay, we get it. You're scared. Okay. But such a minor thing, but it's like here's the thing. My wife and I both have sleeping issues. Her issue is falling asleep. Mine is staying asleep. So sometimes I wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll go into the living room to watch something, and I'll start watching it. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch House upon the Hill. I gotta turn it down real quick because God, it's so loud. And I always expect neighbors to go, "Are you killing someone over there?" No, we're not. And there's definitely not an acid pool in the basement.
What I do love about this movie most is how dark they make things look in the basement. Really, really great lack of lighting, sort of to a degree, of how, because this movie is best viewed in black and white, in my opinion, because it
was supposed to be viewed in black and white.
Yeah, it was really made for it in every way. I think now there are things the remake does really, really well, and
well, that's different. The remake is meant to be in color,
right? I love how they shoot this. I love how they do the effect, especially the wife handing out the window is really, really fucking awesome in this movie. Because the rooms too are joined together. They have their own separate rooms in here. That's one thing they do in this movie best, because the guy, I think he's right next to her, and he comes in and he says, well, just stay here. And as she's there, you see the wife who is just handing out the window, who, like, you see this like hanging scene. It's like really cool. This movie is just fun from beginning to end. Go ahead, guys. I'm sorry. Anybody?
You were talking when we first talked about this, Joel. You mentioned soundtracks. Now this isn't probably what you were talking about, but there's two themes that run through the musical themes that play in the first film. There's the House on Haunted Hill theme, which kind of leads into the music that's played anytime they're starting to push poor Nora to shoot Vincent, and it just and it worked. Normally those little musical cues, if you're watching the films, at least in my opinion, they don't work, because you catch on to them. Oh, something's going to happen, or oh, they're not playing the music, nothing's going to happen. This is a cheat, and that they work well. I think they're kind of subtle, which is a word probably not mentioned with William Castle very much. But they work, in my opinion. I think they do their job well.
Yeah. Well, in the remake, I would give the soundtrack nod to the remake more so than the original. The original has a good score, don't get me wrong, but at the time in the 90s, they tapped Marilyn Manson to do some of the soundtrack for the remake.
Well, now you're dealing with two different things, though.
Right.
You're dealing with the soundtrack of hit songs, and I guess that Eurythmics song was a big hit. Eurythmics, right?
Sweet Dreams.
Yeah. Well, I'm not that tired, but but then you have the orchestral score,
Yeah.
and I don't recall who wrote the orchestral score, but I think it's one of the most lush and beautiful film scores, certainly horror film scores of its era. It just has this, the pop songs can't defeat it. It really, it's great to see that when a truly important set of moments or emotional soundscape has to be created, that they do rely on the orchestra, and it is a big lush score.
Yeah. I think like the worst song ever put in a movie would have to go to Halloween H2O. Creed's "What's This Life For?" It had no reason being in that fucking movie. None. There was no reason for it.
I'm not sure there's reason for that movie. Anyway, keep going.
No,
I mean,
Now,
the song's really in keeping with the film in that sense.
the remake. Okay, I'm gonna play Joel for a few minutes. Okay, guys. Which film do the three of you, and then I'll answer, which film do you prefer? Gordon.
I prefer the original for one reason: Vincent Price. The remake is not a bad movie, but it doesn't have Vincent Price.
Patrick?
I really, really love the remake. I think that the original's marvelous. Yeah, it's a great film. I mean, it's to say that I like the remake doesn't mean I dislike the original. But I think the remake really made use of the freedoms, a proper use of the freedoms, to give audiences what they go to see an R-rated movie for. And I like that. It is appropriately lurid, and yet it has a kind of weird grandeur to it and a lyricism I really like. It's full of good-looking, interesting actors who I enjoy watching. It's trashy in just the right way that I enjoy. William Castle really would have approved of this movie. Everything in it, I think, is designed and picked to show the audience a good time. We use the term fan service, and I think fan service is just something in a movie or franchise or something that you normally like, but you don't like how much of it is in this film or in what way it's in this film. It's a very subjective idea for me. And this is just fan service right and left. It's just like they had a checklist of what do people want to see in an R-rated movie. Check, 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 check. And they put it in the film, but they put it in really well. And I love that about it. And it starts with no holds barred beginning, that crazy beginning with Jeffrey Combs, that in the hands of a lesser filmmaker, it just would have been boring and lugubrious, and it would have lingered on gore and so on and so forth. But this is somebody Robert Zemeckis picked to do this thing. He was associated with the Dark Castle movies, I think, in the beginning, and Zemeckis knew what he was doing. William Malone really keeps that stuff going. And then the rest of the film has that thrust to it. And my gosh, if you're going to have a Vincent Price sort of figure, although he's much more John Waters than Vincent Price, Jeffrey Rush, good God. I mean, talking about the jackpot and Peter Gallagher's shirt. That's a cool shirt. It's Flash Gordon kind of shirt. And I think Chris Kattan's really good in the movie. I watched this film and I think, here's an example of a allegedly comical actor who brings all of those forces to bear on a part that should have been a throwaway part, but he makes it interesting and he makes it humane and he makes it relatable. And it makes me sad because you could see Chris Kattan could have had a much more interesting career if he had stuck with, nervous little man in a room type parts. Uh, uh, so, gosh, there's so much I love about that film, and it doesn't mean I don't love Vincent Price for the original House on Haunted Hill. I do, but I remember avoiding this movie because of The Haunting, which came out around the same time.
Yeah.
And I finally got a copy of it at McCay's, and I watched it, and I have rarely been more surprised or at a better time with a film. I just what a surprise! What a refreshing, accessible, trashy delight.
Yeah, I think
Joel?
this.
Oh, sorry.
I was about to say, I don't dislike. I actually do like this film as well because it really has that William Castle spirit. It just kind of goes. It starts with that sense of exuberance and excitement and gripping, and it runs with it. I mean, even when it goes from kind of like that kind of very superficial shockfulness to really going in and digging deep and becoming full out horror. This is a weird thing to say, but there's an enthusiasm about the remake that a lot of remakes don't have when it comes to the original source material.
Yeah,
I agree.
I prefer the remake. And the thing about Jeffrey Combs too, he's in a movie called The Frighteners with Michael J. Fox, by the way, which is an interesting film. This movie I love for all the reasons. It's what a remake should really do is pay tribute to the original movie, and they do that in every way by being its own film. Here's this amusement park owner who is like a thrill seeker in a weird way. Like, he does practical jokes. He has no problem pulling a prank on somebody, so you don't know what's real or fake at times. And yet he's having his wife's party, who he can't stand, just like Vincent Price's character in the original, at a haunted abandoned asylum where people were murdered. But the ghost either hack or haunt his computer and change the guest list he made to people who were related to people who worked there. And it's like, Jesus Christ. And so Chris Kattan's character, he's telling everybody, listen, you think the ghosts are bad? They're just fucking with you. Wait till somebody lets the darkness out of this place and shit's really going to hit the fan. So Chris Kattan, he nailed the character. I thought he does. I was wrong. He does want to leave. He's the Pritchard who wants to leave, but he doesn't. He gets stuck in there.
He can't.
He can't leave. And I like how Vincent Price's character is trying to rig up stuff to get people scared, but his own henchman gets killed.
You mean Jeffrey Rush?
Yeah, sorry, Jeffrey Rush. Sorry, his character's name, Price. Sorry. So, by the way, James Marsden is in this movie as the technician.
Cameraman with Lisa Loeb as the reporter.
Yeah, it's like,
who's the reporter?
Lisa Loeb. She was a singer.
Yeah.
Might still be. I don't know.
Yeah, the cast in this is interesting. They don't play it safe. Jeffrey Rush, Frankie Jansen, Ty Diggs,
Jansen.
Sorry, Ty Diggs, Peter Gallagher, Chris Kattan, Ali Larter, Bridget Wilson, Sampras, Max Perlich, Jeffrey Combs, yada yada yada. They kill off characters who you aren't expecting. Like, I was not expecting Jeffrey Rush's character to get locked up in this movie, where they put him in like this chamber.
Oh, boy, scary, quasi-Edwardian, psychiatric tools. I never thought that concept would be so scary, but the moment they introduce it, cool. It's complete nonsense, but at that point I bought into the movie so much, I'll go along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because she sort of pulls one over on him in this movie, sort of the way like in the original, to a degree, where she fakes her death just like in the original. So but they do it more with murder and stuff. More. I think they shoot her. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
No, electrocute.
Electrocute. Sorry, they electrocute her, but Catan's character, he's so like paranoid about the ghosts and stuff. So you're focused on him, because the one scene I love most is when the ghost of Taye Diggs' like ancestor, who looks just like him, like dives into the blood, and she's like, "Oh my god!" And he comes on. He's like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like that. I was like, "Oh
Joel, I don't think that was his ancestor. I thought it was like a weird duplicate of him.
Yeah,
Because even
It
at
was
the
the
end,
house. He was adopted.
yeah,
yeah."
because it wouldn't make sense that it would be his ancestor. I think it was like the house going, here, let me throw this, letting her think that he did that, because it shows him, not his ancestor.
But
That's
yet
right.
your point for the whole thing is right, Joel. Just that little bit. This having rewatched this for the first time since it was in the theaters in, I believe, '99, I was surprised at how much closer the remake was hitting the notes, so to speak, like the original did, and then subverts them and changes them, possibly for the better in most points. I'm a Vincent Price fan. I prefer the original. And just like Patrick, that's not saying, and Gordon, I'm not saying the remake is bad.
No.
I enjoy the remake. Now, I incorrectly for a long time thought that Jeffrey Rush was doing, if you will, a Vincent Price impersonation,
Just
but
the
apparently he's
makeup
doing
job.
John Waters. And then they said something to him, and he's like, "No, I'm doing John Waters." And then they looked at him, I'm like, "Well, it works for Vincent Price too." I'd never realized that John Waters and Vincent Price were similar that much. My problem with the remake, and it's not necessarily the story, it's not the actors, it's when the darkness shows up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to blame that on the late '90s. Mention a movie that Patrick mentioned, I think, before we started recording, the Haunting from later that year, or earlier that year. This amorphous blob coming through, and that's your villain. I'm like, I don't know who finds that scary. I do not.
I said that I was okay with it, because at a certain point when you hear about bizarre Lovecraftian evil and these very sort of vague and grandiose, more descriptions of reactions than descriptions of what people are doing, it's always going to be a little impossible to pull that off. And so, I think, being a Dark Shadows fan, I'm used to not special effects, but things that are symbolic of special effects. And to me, that was symbolic of what was going on. And you know what it reminded me of, though? It reminded me of the Hebraic death angels coming out of the Ark in Raiders of the Lost Ark. It kind of was like, oh, this is their great grandfather. This is like the big one. If little ones were in the Ark just going around killing a few Nazis, this is the King Kahuna.
Yeah, and it also fits with the whole psychiatric thing, because to me it looked like this great shifting Rorschach blot.
Rorschach blot, yeah.
Ooh, I hadn't thought of that. I like what they do with the story. I don't think you could get away with a straight remake of the original.
Yeah.
And I think they realized that. So they, intentionally changed for the better for their story.
And the remake, or the original, isn't all that straight either. Skeleton puppets and this was a movie that was built around an inflatable skeleton flying over the audience. We gotta remember that. That the original is a trip through a haunted house, like at a carnival. And this movie has that feel, even when you're going through the basement and you feel like you're in a doom buggy, kind of going around and seeing all of these things.
Hey,
it's
I'll be right back.
beautifully
I forgot something. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I had a prop.
All right. The suspense is killing me. Um, so there we go. Babes in this film too. I'll just say
Yeah.
it. Um, I everyone's. I think just an interesting performer, and it's full of the cliches that a bad GM would have as NPCs in a role playing game, you know, and yet it all comes together, and it's a very well done collection of these, you know, you know, wacky cliches, and that it has some freshness to it. I think there's a wonderful sense of real dread built into the house, that just in terms of the production design and in what the script has it do, and the all of the Dark Castle movies. I don't count Gothica because it's an original idea, sort of, and so that's not really a William Castle remake. But House of Wax, fantastic house, really, I mean, the end is not that successful for me, but the rest of the movie really is. It's like they're tripling down on, the individualized horror. I remember it had one of the first really elaborate websites to promote a movie, where you could click on the biographies of the different ghosts and learn about them. um House of Wax, I think, instead of trying to do just, redo the Vincent Price film, which, you're not going to be that successful with it. They genuinely went and did something original, and I thought it was just really creepy as hell. And even Ghost Ship, which is not a good movie, is not a good movie. Nevertheless, the ship itself has some wonderful bits of production design, and there is this sense of foreboding that they're able to do. I mean, all of those major Dark Castle movies take an environment and get the most out of it.
Was
Yeah.
Ghost Ship the last Dark Castle film?
No, I think that was. I don't remember. I think the last one was Gothica,
Ah,
which I've tried to watch. I couldn't get very far. Yeah, it
Not
was
bad.
House on Haunted Hill, 13 Ghosts, I believe Ghost Ship, House of Wax, and Gothica.
now,
13.
for what I went to go get, for anybody that doesn't know, in the original House of Haunted Hill, there was a gimmick which the director, William Castle, was known for. It's called a Merjo. There was a skeleton that would go out. I don't think Mr. Castle thought it was going to scare anybody, but bring you into the film. When the remake was done, the prize was there was 5 $1 million bonds, and the people that survived the night would get them, which to me also encourages people to kill each other, because hey, let's make more money. There was a giveaway. You got a scratch ticket when you bought your ticket. They look like this.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
I still have mine. I kept it because I was just like, not many Vincent Price films get remade, and obviously I did not win. $100,000. But
At some point, Joe, I'd like to talk about my favorite Vincent Price movies.
Sure.
Thank you. Tomb of Lygia.
Oh, yes.
It's a magnificent performance. Jesus Christ. Isn't that a Robert Towne screenplay? It's a hell of a movie. Wow. He's this dark romantic hero, which he never gets to play.
Nope.
I think we forget Theater Blood, as hammy as it is and as psychedelically sort of shabby Amicus early 70s as it is. Price gets to do some stuff about being an underappreciated performer, and it's more the softer moments that he has than the big roaring moments that I think are extremely effective. And then 2 other performances. Well, Whales of August, And Butch, we talked about this. Your wife's favorite Vincent Price movie, I believe, and justifiably so.
Yes.
Um, but then, lastly, two films. Vincent, the short black and white film that he narrates, is just beautiful, and
Yes.
and that's everything wonderful about Vincent Price. His sense of, and you can tell that he is touched as a performer, that this tribute has been written for him about a tribute that has lived for him, but is done so well. And you can hear his justifiable pride in his career, just in the intonations there. And then, even though I'm not a big fan of the movie, I think his work in Edward Scissorhands is just maybe it's because I think, didn't he die before the film came out?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a lot of baggage to bring in. But it's almost like Tim Burton made a movie, which is an unusual thing. Tim Burton made a movie um, to be released after Vincent Price's death. It's sort of like watching Desmond Llewellyn in World Is Not Enough. You always have a backup plan. That there's just this sense of knowing that I think this is it. And he is the heart of that movie. And I don't love the movie. I think it tries too hard, but Vincent Price doesn't. He's
Yeah.
just spot on.
Yeah, and Price, I think, had really good taste in roles. I mean, even something he never really, even in a film that's minor like Dead Heat, he gives a really good performance because it's very darkly comic, where he's trying to convince all these rich people that, hey, we've got this new process, we can live forever. I mean, like he never did like a. I'm sure that if you dug, there are probably like a few cheap cash-ins, but he never did like an obnoxious sequel, like say Waffle House of on Haunted Hill. Like he'd never do something like that.
I have that very meme saved on my phone. It's Vincent Price standing in front of a Waffle House, and it's Waffle House on Haunted Hill.
I
House
did
of
not
Ill
realize it
Repute
was a
on
meme.
Haunted Hill.
I got some questions for you fellas. Taking Jules' role from him again.
Please.
What was Vannicut, Jeff Combs's character, Dr. Vannicut? What happened to him? Was he crazy? Did he go crazy?
Oh,
In
he
your
was
opinion?
quite
I mean, this is
mad before the film even starts.
Yeah, I mean, is he batshit at the beginning? Was he always batshit?
Oh yeah.
What's
Yeah.
your opinion?
He's
I would say he was gone from the beginning, considering all that they did there. Like he was out of it.
I have a theory, and I don't think it's true, but I really think Dr. Vannikin, I'd like to think wasn't initially written for this movie. Simply because he feels like a character who there was supposed to be more to, and I like the character because we don't know a lot about him. We know he runs this crazy institution where he's killing people. I think it's also somewhat of a take on Body Snatcher to a degree, to a very small degree. But I don't think there's a lot to. It just feels like his character, and I'm not saying that Jeffrey Combs wasn't meant to be in this movie. It just feels like the character was meant for more than just this specific movie.
I have a theory about that. I think that it was I think this is how they would have done it had this film made money, which it really didn't. I mean, I think it doubled its budget, which is good. But back then, movies weren't as expensive to make, so it's not like Avengers Endgame doubling its budget or something like that at the box office. I think the opening scene of this movie is the last scene of what would have been the next film. if they had not done that choose your own adventure crap. And it would have been a prequel. That, that we are seeing the last, and the cool thing is that it would have been shot so that, at home you could watch the prequel, and it literally just flows right into the next film, because Jeffrey Combs is too good an actor, and there's too much scary stuff. But the nice thing, though, about the fact that there wasn't a proper sequel, because I mean that thing came out far too
God.
late. It was just, come on, guys.
What a turn.
Is that this is a very, in terms of its ideas and just the wacky stuff that it has all over, it is a very rich movie. And you could, at least I could tell, oh man, that's all stuff that would appear in the prequel, that would be further examined, the insanity chamber and all of that stuff. But because there isn't a proper prequel sequel, it just makes this film all the richer with bizarre, detail. I like that.
Yeah. Gordon?
I think that, I'm kind of leaning with along with Patrick's theory. I also think it's just, I could see where the role might have been written as kind of maybe a one note like exposition. The doctor is just there for exposition, but Combs just gives it that extra little oomph, and that's what I think adds to the film. That it's not just exposition for exposition's sake. That even though he's not really on screen all that much, Vandecut becomes a major character because he has that kind of extra presence there.
I can tell you what the prequel sequel should have been is also a remake of Shock Corridor, where you have Bruce Campbell as a reporter who gets himself, incarcerated into this place. And because he would have been in perfect time for it, it would have been a great role for Bruce. A little more serious than he does, but still lots of opportunities for one-liners. And to see, him and Bruce Campbell, him and Jeffrey Combs go up against each other. Yeah, I would love that. So it just occurred to me. What a cool movie.
That combination, I don't know if Patrick remembers that. One time we were talking about the duo and duality of certain actors, Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee. And I felt personally in the late 90s, we were missing that. We didn't have these two. And for me, yeah, Jeff Combs, Bruce Campbell.
You know what killed it? You know what killed it? That Williamson guy, Kevin Williamson. Because Scream came along right around the time of WB and Whedon Mania, and everything became, teeny bopper with, one fey Englishman to give it some legitimacy. And it became once again uncool to be an adult in a horror movie, and I think that culturally kind of just did a highlight and cut on that idea, because the time had come for that idea, but adults became uncool again.
I agree. Slight bit of trivia here. Did you know that the remake on House on Haunted Hill is the last film credit for Dick Smith, who did some of the additional makeup designs?
Really? Or Dick Smith? Well, I mean, the effects look good.
The special effects were designed by Greg Nicotero and Rob Kurtzman, KNN of KNB, if you know who that is, and they brought Dick Smith in for a little bit.
That's wonderful.
Cool.
That put it a little bit closer into my heart for that to be in there. And if you don't know who Dick Smith is, look him up.
Well, Dark Shadows fans watching
Yeah,
this would certainly
uh,
know who Dick Smith is because he created the old Barnabas. And then reused some of those appliances on Dustin Hoffman in Tootsie.
yeah.
No, in Little Big Man.
Yeah, especially the part when Dustin Hoffman's character turns into a vampire. That's the best use of his makeup.
If you did that in the Deadlands universe, you did Little Big Man in the Deadlands universe, that would be the big reveal at the end with the reporter, is that, he then lunges at the reporter. How have you stayed alive this long? Hasn't been easy.
I'll show you.
Would have made that movie good. I like that movie. A great Thayer David movie.
when do you want to do the next Vincent Price movie, Patrick?
As soon as we can.
How's next Saturday, guys? Butch,
Yeah, I can do Saturday. Which one are we doing? We're doing Tomb of Legia?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
Yes, Tomb of Legia. It's a great movie.
Gordon?
Let's see, next Saturday. Yeah, I'm good next Saturday.
Okay, 9:45. That time tomorrow night we're doing Doctor Who. All 4 episodes. Yes, I remember to watch all 4 parts. Gordon, all 4.
I haven't yet done so. I'm looking forward to it.
And I'm going to watch all 4 parts again tomorrow.
Now, guys, Monday, is it Monday, Joel?
Yeah,
We're talking about Monday. We're talking about a recent horror movie. Is really good. It's called Talk to Me, and it's A24ian. It may not be an A24 movie, but it might as well be. It's legitimately unsettling. So I just throw that out there.
So Gordon, if you want to Monday, yeah, we're doing it Monday. Gordon, if you want,
it's a hell of a movie.
Yeah. I don't think I'll be able to come on Monday, so I'll pass.
Okay.
Butch,
Joel?
you want to come on Monday?
I can't, man. Grandpa gets up at about 5:30 in the morning, and
well, I mean, just out of curiosity, Joel, do we have to, if it's something like that, do we have to do it that late?
No, we could do it like the latest I could, like 9:30. I could do 9:30, 9:45. I just have to let Julie know.
Would 9:30 be?
Not really. I'm already in bed by then.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Had to ask.
I appreciate the offer. I enjoy these films. In fact, the fact we've had to put this off for a little while was like, damn, I've missed my friends. What's going on with everybody? I really enjoy this. I hate saying I can't make something.
Okay. Let me tell you what's going on with me. We got the kids signed up for baseball season. You know what it's been doing out here in the East? It's been freaking raining. No baseball.
So there we go.
Not yet, anyway. No.
There we go.
God. Freaking baseball.
Well, Joel, ask us if we got anything to say.
Yeah, is there anything you guys want to add before we get on out of here?
Well, since you asked, Joel, I just a couple of quick points that since I typed them up, I want to say the Vincent Price character or inspired gives each of the guests a party favor. In the original film, it is a Colt Model 1903 pocket hammer. In the remake, it is a Sig Sauer P228. Oh, and my last point, which God, I looked at it that quick and I forgot it. God, I'm old and I can't remember anything now. In the remake, when twice Jeffrey Rush's Vincent Price, John Waters' character gets accused of being behind it all, and twice he says, "You've got the wrong guy," and he's right. He's not doing it. The henchman that you mentioned is the one doing it, and it's like, I didn't notice that he never really lied because no, he couldn't be back there doing it. He's got somebody else doing it. Another layer on the remake that, I think I was very critical of it when I first saw it, and watching it again, especially not long after watching the original, it's like I like it more. than I did before. And
I think
you
it's
can catch,
Butch, as I recall, when it around the time it came out, your major beef was, what is this faux Vincent Price, nonsense? Why would they do that? And I think it's saved by the fact that Jeffrey Rush doesn't do a Vincent Price impression. That he lets Vincent Price be Vincent Price, and he is his own character. I think that ultimately is a better tribute to Vincent Price, because it's like, you know what? I'm not going to do an impression of this genius. Let his genius be his genius. This is going to be about my genius in the part doing something else.
Yeah, he captures the Price vibe without being an imitator. Like years later, he would star as Peter Sellers in The Life and Death of Peter Sellers, and he manages to get the mannerisms down, and even comes up with some really good riffs and like just spontaneous lines without ever feeling like he's just slavishly copying Sellers. I mean, one scene he's taking photographs of Brett Eklund, and he's straddling this white leather couch, and as he's saying, "Oh yeah, you're hot, you're wonderful," and at one point he says, "I haven't had this much leather on my thighs since the Third Reich," and that was spontaneous. That was improvised. Sellers never said
it's a great
that.
line.
I don't remember that. If you say so, I default to your wisdom and your memory, because mine is gone. Now or later, I learned to appreciate it, and I agree. I mean, he's, I think I said in our last video, he does a great Vincent Price impersonation. He does a great job in the Vincent Price role. This is not an impersonation.
It's
because
not.
I've
I mean,
seen
the
some
accent alone is not that mid-Atlantic silkiness. It's, a hardened carnival barker.
Yeah.
there was somebody on Saturday Night Live that used to do a really shitty Vincent Price impersonation that sounded more like oh shit. Who did Citizen Kane?
Are you thinking about Bill Hader?
Bill Hader.
Oh well, yeah.
And
Michael McKean also
hated
did one.
his impersonation of Vincent Price, because this, like you said, this is, to me, me and Patrick have talked about this. Homage is risky business. This is kind of an homage, without dipping into, doing a bad impersonation. You can watch Vincent does Vincent, Jeffrey Rush does Jeffrey Rush, and they're similar. You can see it's inspired, but he does his thing, and it's really good. It makes the film very enjoyable for me. I mean, not that everybody else does a bad job, but he really makes this remake for me.
Yeah, he does a really good job in the remake, because I agree with you what you guys said. He doesn't try to be Vincent Price. He, like you said, he is very much a carnival barker. And everybody, he's selling horror and selling the illusion of it. That he goes to a place that has no illusion to offer, just pure terror. So, is there anything you guys want to add before we go?
Sorry, you made me think of this, Joel. I know, and I see. I realize you're probably getting tired, so I'll make this quick.
No.
The early scene at his theme park, when he's being interviewed by Lisa Loeb and Spike, and they get on. They're on this elevator, and it starts to crash, and then you find out it's just part of the ride. And then they're on the roller coaster, and this guy comes up and he's like, "Mr. Price, we got a problem." And then you see the railing come apart, and you see can't think of his name now, William something, that played Spike. His eyes get huge, super big, because the car in front of them is headed towards, it looks like the rail is coming, and this car goes flying, and they're both like, "Oh my God, we're going to die. And then it goes right back, and he's like, "What?" The Jeffrey Rush character's like, "What? It looked fine." And he, "Oh, you mean one of the fake passengers? Yeah, change him to a screamer."
Yeah.
That right there tells you everything. That scene tells you everything you need to know about that character for this remake. And when that scene was over, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm in. Let's do this.
Gordon?
Very rarely do you get a remake that is even close to the original, and I think these are just two really great films.
They are two great films. Yeah.
They are.
All right, guys. First of all, thank you for joining me on this wonderful, wonderful conversation, both House on Haunted Hill, the original and the remake. There's going to be many links to, or sorry, go ahead, Patrick. Did you want to say something?
No, I was just wondering where this had been.
Oh, sorry. Links to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page is going to be in the description box and his website. Link to the Collinsport Historical Society and the Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound is going to be in the description box. Butch Rosenbalm, Gordon Dymowski, Patrick McCray, it is always a pleasure, good sirs.
I'm going to have to write a book, keep up with these guys.
We're waiting.
The unofficial bounty hunter adventures of Butch Rosenbaum.
Thanks for having us, Joel.
You're welcome. Bye.
Take care.